All right, the champagne's coming out. So I'm going to start the inaugural father of the bride. Carla, stop kissing, or Emily, stop kissing him. Yes, that's the kind of day it's been here. No, no. I'm probably a little off script here, but you guys, what a frickin' year to plan a wedding. Oh my gosh. You know, as Carl and I are and Mark and Mary are trying to put this thing together, it doesn't stop. The next thing like hits you like it's a pandemic. There's the forest fires. It's unbelievable. Emily and Brian pulled it off. So congratulations to you two. Unbelievable. Mark, Mary. Can you hear me? Do you have your champagne ready? You guys, they pulled it together. And I know they were, I've learned to understand Mark and Mary a little bit, and Mark said, don't let this go over 10 minutes, and I won't. But this yard, they bought this wonderful place here, and even though this is plan, I'm going to say it's plan A, because this is the best. This is amazing. This, you guys, as a father, and Carla, my wife, would not want anything more unique and beautiful as this place. So thank you very, very much for providing this. And now, for all you guests here, I could go right down the line and I could just hug in and love Carla and Ike and everyone. You guys are amazing. It's a young crowd. I'll agree to that for the most part. You know, not looking at this end of the deal. But I continue to refer this as the posse. And I don't know if it's like the group that it's just thank you. We are honored that you're here and honoring both our children, and thank you for witnessing their union. Thank you. And Carla, thank you for raising such a wonderful girl. I know a girl in your family is something that you have a lot of girls in your family, but it doesn't come natural to a mother. And you have, I'm just saying, you have raised a wonderful, beautiful child who is incredible, and you've taught her some wonderful things in your life, and looking at her, she shines right through you. Thank you. And Emily, wow, you look amazing. You really do. Now I got to go back to my notes here a little bit because I wrote some special things that I have to hit the high notes, like Nick and I talked about a little bit. You got to make sure you hit those high notes correctly. So, you've always amazed me, Em. You really have. And when I look at you, I see this little girl. One day when Emily and I were, or Carla and I were sitting on the porch, and you were like probably about 4. And I'd gotten home from work, and I said, Em, go get me a beer. You probably don't remember this because I'm sure you don't. And so you go, okay, Dad. Okay, Daddy, I will. And with that, you had your little black shorts on and your little white top on, and away you went. And then Carla and I looked at each other and go like, where'd she go? Like, maybe she knows where the beer is. And she went that way and disappeared. And then the next thing, she ran that way. And she went, well, okay, let's go with that. Maybe it's that way. And then she went running around the yard. You came back and said, Daddy, where's the beer? And then to a young woman who excelled whatever you went after. Be it school, sports, soccer, track, or lifelong friends. You found a way to do it your own way. Now I'm going to cry. Why do I do this? It's one that shaped who you are today. You did it your way, kid. You really did. You're self-driven. You have a strong work ethic, strong love of family, fiercely loyal. Such wonderful traits to have. Come on. So congratulations, Em, for finding your true love. May this love grow stronger and deeper through each passing day of your marriage life. Brian, get away. Stop kissing my daughter. From the first time I met you, you were smiling. And you have not stopped. Your devotion to Emily is all a dad could ever want. Thank you. You're the balance that makes this union complete. Please raise your glasses and toast Mr. and Mrs. Maxson.
So I guess that makes us next. I'm Jordan, and this is Lisa, and we're Emily's cousins. We just wanted to address the crazy circumstances we're operating under tonight. 30 people need to eat 300 portions of cake. So I hope you brought your Tupperware. This wedding wouldn't have been possible without the Greens and the Maxons. Everything has truly come together. The market lights, the yucca plants. Everything is beautiful. Thank you so much for having us. By now, most of you know that our moms are sisters, and they happen to have a baby girl in the same year. In our family, we carry the nickname the Three Little Girls. And despite the fact that we're pushing 30, we still don the title proudly. Woo! Brian, sure glad you made it tonight. And Em, you look like an absolute goddess. But that's not why we love you. We're going to tell you a few stories that will give you a little insight into the Emily we know. So, most of you might not know, that Jerry Green, that guy, is a big car guy. And I shouldn't just say cars. I should say Porsche GT3 1996 Cup cars. And so it only made sense for him to raise a badass go-kart racing 8-year-old like Emily. And Em has always had a tough girl attitude that made her a force to be reckoned with. One summer, after a full day of Camp Christmas Tree Day Camp, Lisa and I were playing with her newly built wooden go-kart. This was a sick whip. We could handle fast turns, rough terrain, and seat two. The one thing that was missing, a motor. We had that covered. All we needed was some power, and after shifts of running the go-kart up and down the driveway, it was Em's turn to bring the power. So, with Lisa and I behind the wheel, eyes closed, Emily pushed us with everything she had, and we steered directly into a cobblestone wall. So, while Lisa and I were giggling and catching our breath, little did we know that Em had suffered a more severe injury. Expecting tears, we rushed in to get Carla, and as we headed to the ER, Lisa and I held a fear that can only be understood by siblings. Sweaty palms and the heat of a death glare coming from the front seat. Em was plotting her revenge, and we were next. Although in this scenario, Lisa and I were on the receiving side of Emily's wrath. Most days, her loyalty and strength inspired us to step out of our comfort zone and be confident in ourselves.
Moving into high school, adolescent angst became teenage rebellion. Picture this. A crisp fall evening after a hockey game, all the girls are wearing their favorite boys' hockey jerseys over their high school sweatshirts, low-rise jeans tucked into their Uggs, and Em and I take our Razor flip phones and T9 everyone we know. This party was going to kick off our high school experience, and it was going to be epic. Em pulls up to my parents' house in her Jeep Grand Cherokee, the bass rattling through the subwoofers in the back, bumping Usher, peace up, A-Town down. Her contagious, bright energy lights up the party. Much fun ensues, and sometime after midnight, everyone stumbles home. The next morning, you can guess the ending. I was busted. I'm not sure what gave it away. The empty bottle of Smirnoff vodka, the beer can scattered around the fire, or our late-night drunk stomps up the stairs. But I knew I was in deep weeds when my parents asked me point blank, "Where did you get the alcohol?" I paused, and I panicked, and it came to me. Emily? And Emily, of course, being the bold life of the party that she is, managed to talk her way out of trouble, graciously have my back, and live to party another day. Years later, we ditched our choker necklaces and juicy suits for CU and CSU college gear and eventually moved up to Vail together with our best friend Suze, and that's where Brian comes in. Em knew right away that Brian was the one after his ballsy first move at a concert, you guys heard about. Or Jordy and I were protective, not just any guy was good enough for our emo. As time went on, there were many moments that confirmed for Jordy and me that Brian and Em were perfect for one another. For example, just like us, neither of them were afraid to embrace a theme party. In fact, I've seen both of them dressed up in sequins and a wig for no occasion at all. It's true, Brian. Secondly, Brian passed the hardest test, which was becoming best friends with us and our significant others. And most importantly, and more seriously, their shared interests and values run through many aspects of their life. One that sticks out for me is their sincere and strong love for those around them. After living next door to these two for over 2 years, Cole and I were often the lucky recipient of their acts of generosity, like when they would bring over fresh homemade waffles and Bloody Marys on a Saturday morning just because. Jordy and I have both witnessed them balance each other out, lift each other up, and just truly love being with one another. And with that,
your presence in life is fierce. You light up every room with your vibrant personality and big heart. Your love radiates, and we're lucky to call you a cousin sister. Brian, we couldn't picture a better man to love Emily as much as we do. Welcome to the Joneses. Cheers. Cheers. Woo! I think I'm supposed to invite somebody else up here next.
I too would like to share some memories. So, Brian, the earliest memories I have with my brother are of me following him around and his friends pestering him to let me hang out. If I pestered enough, sometimes he would let me hang out. But most other times I would end up with a few bruises. In high school, I always liked to remind Brian of all the things that I was better at than him. He was on football, he was faster and stronger than I was, but I sure learned how to drive Mom's old manual transmission a hell of a lot quicker. But still, I looked up to him, and for some odd reason, he opened up to me. When I was in college, Brian invited me out to Vail to visit and to meet this new, beautiful, and adventurous girl named Emily. I visited a few times over the years, and out there we skied and we danced to bluegrass and we drank Bloody Marys, and the whole time I watched my brother falling very much in love. About this time, 3 years ago, I was overjoyed when the two of them and Reva invited me out to live with them here in Bend. I was stoked, and I moved in, And what happened next is a little bit hard to describe. So I've got a quote from John Steinbeck, which happens to be our father's favorite author. Steinbeck says, "When two brothers live together, they usually maintain a kind of shabby neatness out of incipient rage for each other." Brian and I were back to giving each other bruises. What, the quote was from East Eden. And I should add, Emily was no angel either. Emily and I would butt heads over just about everything. How to do the chores and what a good volume is to listen to electronic music. As loud as it can go, really. But I realize now that she is the only person who can get under my skin like my brother can. And Emily, it's because you feel like family. It turns out living with somebody is a great way to get to know them. And perhaps the three of us all know more than we would like. Brian and Emily, somebody once told me that there is nothing better than to be truly known and truly loved. I'm so happy you have found each other, and that you welcomed me into your lives to get to know me, and that you invited me to hang out with your friends, and all of our family as well. And Emily, I know after this, you will share with me all your coveted mushroom hunting spots, starting tomorrow. I love you both. I love you both so very much, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Cheers.
Well, hello everyone. We'll wait for this guy to sit down. Alrighty, I am Nick Green. I am the bride's brother. I want that to be known. First off, congratulations, Emily and Brian. And thank you to Mary, Mark, Jerry, and Carla, and everyone else who's had a say in making this festivity and this weekend so gorgeous and amazing. Everything looks spectacular. So thank you, guys. I'll keep it short, but I just want to touch on how special this wedding day really is. The obstacles it's had to overcome. People have mentioned the pandemic, the forest fires, and the smoke. And some would say that those right there are the true test to see if these two could make it. But I'd like to beg a differ. The real love test came about a year ago, up in the Boundary Waters. And so a little backstory. So we're up in the Boundary Waters, and these two go out in their canoe, a little two-seater, and Brian had hooked a decent-sized fish. First fish in 10 years. And Em, being the good girlfriend she is, grabs the net. At the time, girlfriend, so. Oh, that's right. Fiance, excuse me. Working her way up. Being the good fiance she is, shifts her way over with the net, causing the boat to turn 180 degrees, flipping them into the water. It is very cold. So watching these two, so not only losing the fish, but more importantly, maybe losing their favorite Yeti cups. So these two swim ashore soaking wet. Brian's face showing disappointment. You can just see it. He's pissed. Emily's in the background laughing uncontrollably. And it was that moment on, I knew if Brian could forgive Emily for that these two would make it. So from there on, I knew this was something special. But Brian, I want to just say thank you, because you bring the best out in my sister. I see how happy you make her. You make her bad day. You can handle my sister on her bad days. But you also make her good days even better, Brian. And that's something not everyone can do. So I want to welcome you, and I want to say you're almost the big brother I've never had. So raise a glass to the two that we love, and thank you guys.
All right, I'm switching hats now from officiant to best man here. So Brian was actually my best man about a year ago, and Brian showed up to duty with a blood clot and a torn ACL at our wedding on crutches, and we got married on the beach. So Brian had to hobble around on the beach. He still was like tearing it up on the dance floor and crushing it. So I've had it pretty, using crutches guitar. So I've had it pretty easy up until this point. I want to thank the Greens and the Maxons for such an epic weekend. This is so cool. Emily, you look freaking gorgeous. Brian, you look like shit. So, as you know, Brian and I grew up about 75 feet apart from each other, and like for the first 18 years of our life, we spent pretty much every day together, doing everything together. We used to bounce back and forth between the Maxons' house just regularly, and it worked out pretty well because the Maxons used to eat dinner really early, and my parents ate dinner really late, so we'd eat dinner at the Maxons' house and walk down the street and eat dinner at my parents' house, which is probably why Brian and I were both really fat at the same time. So when I say we did everything together, like we literally did everything. We were both in speech therapy together. We took speech therapy for like 5 years. I don't know if either of us actually had a speech impediment, but we just wanted to hang out together for longer. They lied, yeah. They just wanted to have us hang out. Yeah. So Brian and I used to walk to, we used to go to the same school, obviously, and Brian used to walk down to my house to pick me up to go to the bus together every morning. And Brian's like a pretty punctual guy. A lot of people don't know that. He shows up on time. And I do not. I'm very late. So like every morning at like 7 a.m., Brian would show up at my house with a Diet Coke and a Pop-Tart. like for breakfast every single morning. Like a Pop-Tart and a Diet Coke. And I was like getting ready, and Brian would wait for me, and we'd be super late, so we'd have to run through the abandoned lot, like through the mud, and we'd like be chasing the bus down, like show up super dirty, super muddy, sweaty, but shows how true, great friend Brian is. He would wait for me every morning, even though he knew I was going to make him late. We used to sell sawdust together. One time our neighbor was cutting down a tree, and there was like a big, huge pile of sawdust, and Brian and I thought it'd be a good idea to sell the sawdust. And I think Mary and my mom were the only ones that bought the sawdust, but we set up like a lemonade stand and everything. It was like, I don't know what we were thinking. Yeah, geniuses. Yeah, future billionaires. So this next story is kind of gnarly. I'm glad most people have finished eating for this one. But it was 7th grade math class, and it was like 6th period. It was like the last class of the day. And Brian kind of like threw up a little bit in his hand. He and I were sitting next to each other. He like kind of threw up just a little bit. And he's like, "Oh, dude, I threw up." And I'm like, "Okay, like we're catching the bus in like a half hour. Like, let's just wait. Let's catch the bus, take you home." So he like threw up away in the trash can. And so we walked to the bus, and like we're sitting across from each other. It's like one of those buses where the aisles are sitting next to each other. And I'm like looking at Brian because I knew he just yarfed before, like 20 minutes before. And he's like, "Yeah, cool kids in the back," because we were pretty cool in high school. Yeah, middle school. This is middle school. And Brian's like looking pretty pale and like kind of queasy. And like my best friend instincts kind of kicked in. I'm like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna yarf again." And so Brian's like scrambling, like looking for a water bottle. And I'm like, "Oh shit, like he's gonna yarf." So I yell like, "He's gonna blow." And like everyone like turns to Brian, and Brian like tries to unscrew the water bottle and like put it up to his lips. And like one lip is on, like one lip is off, and like the yarf just goes everywhere. Like literally the whole bus was just sprayed with Brian's throw up. Yeah. 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 Your life was over, man. Yeah. Life was over at that point. But exactly. You had to start looking for Emily. But the worst part was the bus driver like kicked Brian off the bus because Brian just continues to like puke in the back of the bus, and everybody's like running to the front of the bus, like trying to get away from it. And so the bus driver kicks Brian off, and I'm like going. I go to the next couple stops because my mom was picking us up, and then we like have to double back to go pick up Brian. And Brian's just like walking through town, like covered in his own throw up, like a zombie, just like oh, there he is, like pick him up. So that was pretty funny. So amazingly, based off all this, Brian, like, I don't know how it happened, but he got a girlfriend before everybody else did in high school. And I remember being he's good looking. I remember being super worried that I was going to lose my best friend because he was wanting to hang out with this girl. And I was like, why does he want to hang out with a girl instead of me? And I was just like super worried he wasn't going to be my friend anymore. So flash forward to meeting Emily. Brian calls me up. I was living in Chicago, and he says, hey, I met this amazing girl, and she's beautiful, and she's smart, and she's fun, and I want everybody to meet her. So Brian organizes a trip to Tahoe with all of our friends from high school and everything like that. And so we're there, meeting Emily. She's amazing, like everything Brian talked about. And normally what happens when we get together with buddies from growing up is we like wrestle, and we get kind of roughhouse. So we're like wrestling, like I'm wrestling Brian, and Grant and Mike are there wrestling, and Emily's like, that looks like fun. So Emily hops in there. So Emily and Brian, like before you know it, Emily and Brian are like full on like headlocks, like everyone's just like, what's going on here? And it was at that moment that I realized Emily is a perfect match for Brian. She truly is his counterpart. So I'm going to read this part here because I'm going to forget it. So over the years, we all continue to learn just how perfect Emily and Brian truly are for one another. From their love of the outdoors, hiking, skiing, dogs, live music, and having a good time with their friends and family, it's hard not to notice just how alike Emily and Brian truly are. It's a great feeling to see your best friend find his perfect match, and I'm truly honored and happy to pass the best friend responsibilities over to Emily. Emily, I know Brian will always wait for you when you're running late, support your crazy ideas, wrestle you, and take care and love you. I love you guys so much. Yeah. Cheers.
I'm just kidding. We're fully winging it right now, just so you guys all know. But I just want to say that you guys that are all here right now are super dear and amazing and super fucking important to us. And I'm really happy that we're all here and that we're all at one table and that this yard came together and that we even can use this house and that the food, and I'm so stoked that you guys are here working your asses off and doing a good thing I like to think we're good people, but who knows? But I appreciate all of you guys. I really do. And I am so stoked, and all your speeches meant so much to us, or to me. I guess I'll speak for myself.
We're together now.
Oh, to us. And we've been stressed out about this. And Emily Noyd over there, she said, she was like, you're not going to fuck it up.
She's been this calming cloud above us, just saying you got
Sorry for swearing so much, by the way. And I didn't really listen to her, but it's going perfectly. And we are so lucky. We're so lucky in so many ways. The fact that we could just scramble together and get this many people, no worries, no problem out here, we're truly the most blessed people in the world. And I thank you all for being our friends, and I love you guys.
Thank you all for being here. I know for some you've traveled from California, Minnesota. Where else are we coming from? That's it. No. Texas. Well, they've been in Minnesota all summer. No, truly, this has been a whirlwind of a production. I mean, we did not know a pandemic was going to hit us, that the fires were going to hit us, that the rains were going to hit us. And we have just felt so lucky that we can be surrounded by all of our closest friends and family. I mean, really, you all that are here, you are our lives. We love you. You make us who we are. And this day has turned out more incredibly beautiful than I could have ever imagined. I have the most wonderful husband in the world. So thank you. Let's get this party going.